もしやコスモでは。
Cosmo needs me free.
Cosmo AP Luxury Sports.
I've been saying I'm going to do this for months, but it's finally time to blast the front end of this car. So I think before I do that, to avoid turning the shop into an absolute disaster of a mess, I'm going to tent around the entire front of the car. So let's start with laying a tarp out on the bottom and then just cover around here with some of that clear plastic. It would be really nice to have some kind of sandblasting room so I wouldn't have to do this. But you know what? For the once a year that I sandblast something huge in here, putting up a little tent, probably not a big deal. And no, I'm not just going to put the thing outside and sandblast it because A, it's basically snowing, it's December, and B, it would create a huge environmental disaster. And I don't need the fire department called yet again. Now the trick when doing this is to leave at least some kind of entrance to your little plastic fortress, because you know, otherwise you kind of screw yourself over and there's no chance of actually entering or leaving. Got to make sure to seal up around the windshield because, as you can imagine, blasting grit against glass means etched glass. So I'm putting quite a bit of duct tape around the seam, but also I will put a piece of board or cardboard over the window before I actually start blasting, just in case there's a mishap with the blasting nozzle, because, well, let's be honest, like every man, occasionally I've had mishaps with my nozzle. Took me about an hour to make this blasting tent, but it should do the job in keeping most of the nastiest blasting stuff out of the rest of the shop. This hose leads to the suction end of a 10-gallon shop vac. It's been fitted with a filter, so I'm hoping that this is going to keep the dust under control. I'll be blasting with 36 grit copper slag, and I've turned the shop air down to about 90 psi. Whenever you're going to operate your nozzle, a good thick set of gloves is very, very important, because if the stream of sand exiting that nozzle, which I heard, by the way, exits at faster than the speed of sound, if that hits your skin's gone. I've also made this air-supplied sandblasting helmet. I took a regular cheap sandblasting hood and then outfitted it with this plastic tube that I drilled full of holes. So when you connect an air supply, there's a constant stream of cool, fresh air inside the helmet. Here we go! PSI ain't doing the job, at least not quick enough, so I turn the pressure up to 100. Kilogram bag, kinda heavy.
I find media blasting to be very therapeutic. You're sealed in your own hermetically sealed little world, blasting away the sins and goo of the past, exposing the original for what it is, ready to be fixed and rebuilt. In a way, isn't that some kind of metaphor for life. It sure makes you think. Or, maybe not, I guess. I don't know. Just watch the blasting. Isn't it neat that the blast media is like erasing all the contamination and rust right down to the bare metal? Copper slag is far safer on the lungs than actual sand, but you better believe that the air in this little blasting tent is almost completely unbreathable, filled with dust from the copper slag, little bits of rust, and who the hell knows what else. If I didn't have an air-supplied blasting hood, I'd be wearing a full respirator.
The nice thing about blasting in an enclosed area like this is that you can just keep sweeping up the media and pouring it back into the blaster. If you do this, make sure to screen it first, because there's going to be all kinds of rust chunks and junk inside that will just clog the blast nozzle, making it absolutely infuriating to use. See all this crap collecting on the screen? Keep in mind that in order to run a sandblaster, you need a bit of a compressor. I have a 5 horsepower twin-cylinder compressor capable of 14 CFM at 140 PSI. It just keeps up with the sandblaster. By the way, I made that air compressor. If you want to find out how, visit the project section of my website, or go back a few videos on my YouTube and you'll be able to see it.
The angle of attack, distance from the work, and speed at which the nozzle is moved is very important when blasting thin sheet metal. If the nozzle is kept too close to the metal, or at too steep an angle, or not moved quickly enough, you can end up really warping the metal because you're going to cause localized work hardening as well as heating.
The blasting is all done. It took about 6.5 hours over 4 evenings behind the nozzle to accomplish it. Now I have the unenviable task of cleaning up the huge mess that is the result. And when I say huge mess, I mean huge mess. Aside from the mess in the shop, it also took me about an hour every night in the shower to remove the sand from my person. And believe me, it gets into absolutely every hole you have. Every hole. Yeah, so about the blast media getting into every single one of my bodily holes, guess how my girlfriend knew that I'd been media blasting? She looked up from about waist level and said, "Honey, why do I have sand in my mouth?" Got most of the blasting grit swept up, and it's mostly reusable after being screened. Oh, that's much better. It's amazing how much light this stuff blocks out. And after about 3 hours worth of work, the shop is cleaner than when I started. Overall, I think I did a pretty good job. There's a few spots I missed here and there, but I have a little spot blaster that I can use to get those later on if need be. Honestly, most of the spots that I missed are because there was tar or undercoating left over, and that stuff just completely repels blast media. Now, as far as the rust, it looks like I exposed a whole lot more, but honestly, I knew about all this rust beforehand. All the blasting did was clean it up. So I can say that, for once, I haven't found any surprise rust. And for some reason, the passenger side really rotted in this area. I have no idea why, but it's a pretty easy panel to repair. There must have been something weird about the passenger side because the frame has rotted out as well. And here's the matching rust from the inside. Actually, this is going to be a pretty easy repair because all of these frame panels are flat. Here's what happens when you don't remove the undercoating tar. It just completely repels the blast media. I'll have to scrape that off afterward. This area rotted out on both the passenger and driver side because the fender panel lays on top of that and it trapped moisture. I'm not really depressed about the rust that I just showed you because I knew about it before the blasting. The blasting has just basically confirmed the areas that I have to fix. It's been about 3 days since I've blasted and you can already see the surface rust forming. So to prevent further surface rust, I'm going to be using MetalReady from PR15 to pickle the surface. It's a zinc phosphate solution which etches the surface and prevents flash rust. This has to stay wet for about 20 minutes, then it gets rinsed off with water. A little bit of surface rust usually forms once it's rinsed off, but that's often the end of it. After sitting for about 20 minutes, the MetalReady just gets rinsed off with water and then thoroughly dried. Well, it's been 24 hours since I MetalReadied and rinsed off the engine bay, and yeah, it looks kind of weird, but this is just surface rust. That's to be expected. It won't rust any further, and this white coating is actually the zinc phosphate that forms, which is what prevents the rust.